because I wanted them under duress to be able to just immediately focus on something and hit a target, you know. At night time, we would have speeches about the geopolitics of the time, the history of the Ottoman Empire, filling their heads of the knowledge. And what that gives you is when they arrive on your set, they've changed from being these urbanized, surfy dudes into young men who could well have lived 100 years ago, you know, and could well have come from a rural environment. But the best thing it gives you is a depth behind their eyes that's a mile deep, because they know who they are. They know their point in the story. They know all about the history of the time. The skill set they need is in their bodies. They can ride the horse. They can use the weapon. And they're confident. And that's what makes your day go a lot smoother if you've spent time building your actors to that point.
So the acting starts well before the filming starts.
Yeah, well, you know, if it's not about platforming for performance, why are we making the movie? You know? It's a visual medium, you know, and the actors are the vessel that we have that takes that story to the audience.
Now everybody always likes to talk to actors who are directing themselves, and they imagine a moment where the director's behind the camera and says, you know, let's go, and then jumps in front of the scene. And obviously it doesn't work that way. But as an actor, now directing yourself, do you have a new appreciation for what directors go through? Did you ever think to yourself, maybe even during the editing process, wow, I was such an asshole when I was on that movie 15 years ago as an actor, or I didn't understand what the director was saying?
Mainly it's come up, man, that they were such lazy bastards, really. Because I could do their job and my job at the same time, and we're still going to finish on time, and at 6:15 on a Friday, everyone's got a glass of wine in their hand. It's not that hard to do. So I don't know what all the complaining's been about, quite frankly.
That's not the answer I thought you were going to get. I thought you were going to say, oh, they're all fucking geniuses. I never knew how hard they worked. Well, yeah, no, actually, now I understand. Now they can't get away with that anymore because you're like, no, I'm on the other side of it, pal.
No, I've actually, you know, for so many years, I only ever worked with directors who are significantly older than me. And some little inaudible click happened in the background. And I found myself on set after set with directors who are significantly younger than me, you know? And, you know, on a sort of a constant basis, like painting themselves into a corner and then going, any idea how I get out of this corner? yeah, mate, you do this and this. Oh, thanks. I'll forget for the rest of the day. And so I suppose, in a way, that work, which has probably been about the last 4 or 5 years now, that gave me a certain level of confidence myself when I actually had to start sort of being on film sets, explaining to young fellas, you know, how you can shoot with 2 cameras on the same line and how you achieve that, you know. I worked with a guy called Ridley Scott 5 times, you know. Ridley will show you how athletic a camera can be, you know. When other directors say, you know, this is the end of what a camera can achieve, that's just the beginning for Ridley, you know. And I've sat out in the middle of, you know, muddied battlefields in the pouring rain with him, watch him painting 5 different monitors, you know, so he has 5 camera crews out there and, you know, calls them in between takes and has a specific set of instructions for each camera crew. And the next time you come back in from the take, the difference that has just happened, you know, it's immense, you know. But you work with somebody like Ridley, and, you know, narrative's not necessarily his favorite thing, you know. If there's some shit to explode or a battle to be had, he's probably more comfortable doing that. You know, but then you work with somebody like Peter Weir, whose sensibility brings everybody to a very gentle place. And, you know, you sort of on that film set, you're 40 miles off the coast of Mexico on a 3-mast ship, and he's got Mozart playing in between takes. You know, and you think, hey, it's not a bad gig, yeah. You know, when you got Mozart floating across the waves to you, you know. But then you work on a film set with somebody like Michael Mann, who will ritually fire somebody once a week. And, you know, I mean, I loved working with Michael. He was an amazing director for an actor to work with. But I did do a 24-hour workday with him once as well, you know. So you have all sorts of different experiences that you call back on. And for me, I know that on a film set, you know, if the actors are happy with what they're doing, you know, they infect the rest of the crew. If the actors are happy and they feel satisfied, they feel like they're being listened to, then, you know, the rest of the crew are excited by that.
Well, you mentioned a lot of directors you've worked with, and with different parts of the film, I mean, it's your voice, but like, for example, the romance we haven't talked too much about, and the scenes in the hotel, which are just, I mean, that could be a whole movie right there, and there's almost a little bit of a Casablanca feel, and those are shot in a different way, and they're very sentimental, but beautiful. Do you feel the influence of other directors when you're shooting that, or is it more of a subconscious thing?
No, I mean, look, creativity always has influence, man. In rock and roll, they're very open about it. When somebody's got a new record coming out, it's the first question that gets put forward. What were your influences on this album? And it's funny because I've been talking about this quite a lot, and creativity will come. Influence comes in ways that you can't necessarily assume. You might be working on a computer program for the traffic lights of Paris. Hit a place where you don't think you can go forward. Walk down to the Louvre, see a couple of magnificent statues, and suddenly you know what the solution is. It's not linear influence in that way. And, influence is always going to come through your filter. But the gateway to beauty is beauty, and even if it's beauty in something stark and horrible, I don't think that beauty can ever be really fully attained. It's like, that's the pursuit. That's what you're looking for. We were talking before about, the different looks of the movie, and we wanted that crisp blue sky in Australia. And we spent quite a bit of time in Istanbul in pre-production, and quite a bit of time looking at painted postcards of the era of the film. And what occurred to us was that, with the level of boat traffic, and the fact that every building's got multiple chimneys, and the fact that people on the streets were doing everything from cooking to blacksmithing to whatever, there's always these hazy layers of smoke. So we tried to differentiate the clarity of the Australian sky with what's going on in Istanbul. But one of the other little tricks we did was try to replicate the clarity of the Australian sky on the battlefield, because so many of the young soldiers who'd written diaries of their experience mentioned how being at Gallipoli reminded them of home. And one of those things was the colour of the water. There's all these tales about young men, where the battle's raging above them on the cliff tops, and they just went for a swim. Just jump in the water and feel closer to home, or some comfort from the fact that they were swimming in the ocean while the bullets were going through the water around them. And I think that's actually shown in one of the scenes in Peter Weir's movie Gallipoli. The guy's doing exactly that. But, standing on that battlefield of Gallipoli was a very emotional experience. And I set it up so I arrived there for the very first time by boat. So I went into Anzac Cove at the same way those young soldiers would have done back in 1915. And something that nobody's ever talks about is the sun rises directly into your face as you're coming in. So there's just no way in the world that any attack by water could have been done with any level of secrecy, So you start to learn those things and piece them together. But that place is an 8 square mile national park now, and is held that way by the Turkish government, which is an incredible thing, really, considering that, we did try and invade them, that they've allowed that area to be sacred. They've allowed young Australians and New Zealanders and Canadians and the British soldiers, Nepalese, Newfoundlanders, French, to be buried there in marked graves. And they continue to look after that area and treat it with a great deal of respect. And that little piece of information, that speaks very loudly about the honour of the Turkish people.
There's also